So in my Bible reading plan, I've just finished all the stories about Moses and I'm now reading about Joshua. I was really struck by the way that Moses trained Joshua to become the next leader of Israel. Joshua is constantly beside Moses. He's observing him, he's obeying him, he is learning from him. And after so many years of being beside Moses and learning from him and being trained by him, when it time's come for Joshua to be a leader, he kills at it. Get it? He kills at it because he destroys the Canaanites? Okay, I'll stop. That relationship between Moses and Joshua is something called discipleship, which isn't a relationship that you see much of inside of the modern church, and I believe to great detriment. If you're like me and you go to a Korean church, let's say, you'd be struck by the demographic if you're really attentive. You'd probably see a lot of children, and you'd probably see a lot of teens. You probably see a lot of people in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s. But the kind of people that you don't generally see are the people in their 20s and their 30s. The reason why that is in the Korean church is because we've just gone through, or we're currently going through something called the silent exodus. The silent exodus describes the departure of many young people from the Korean church. Unfortunately, the phenomenon has been going on for the last 20 years and it's only accelerating. The kinds of solutions that I currently witness in the Korean church are a lot of event-based activities, which aren't all bad. For example, if a church hosts a coffee house to get non-believers to come to church, or if they are making a retreat for the growth of their current church members, then it just shows that it cares. The church cares. And caring means that you're going to put some effort into it, which is good, but let me be clear. Bringing people to retreats or coffee houses aren't the prescribed biblical way of growing the faith. It's clear at the end of Matthew. Jesus says that we are to go and make disciples of all nations. And he showed the way we're supposed to disciple in his own ministry. Jesus took a bunch of raw young adults and he crafted them into his disciples by living with them intimately, by teaching them in a small group setting and letting them observe him as he just lived life. And I don't really see many Korean Christians doing that these days. Us Koreans, we love our event-based activities and I get why. We love our numbers, we love our measurable metrics. And that's the reason why I guess we do pretty well at school, because we love to see that A, we love to see that 100%. Big numbers are sexy and comforting. Like having a room filled with people is sexy and comforting. But has that approach to ministry really worked? I would say the eye test says no. On a personal level, and I know a lot of you could vibe with this, you don't see many converts out of those event-based evangelistic events, and you don't see a lot of spiritual growth from those retreats. You see a lot of spiritual highs, but then you also see a lot of spiritual crashes, right? And maybe your experiences might be different, but then current trends and history still stands against you. Because the Korean church does plenty of event-based activities, and yet it's still going through the silent exodus. It's still losing young people by the boatloads. Another reason why we don't see much discipleship is it's just a little bit harder. It's harder to be intimate. It's harder to be accountable. It's harder to be that patient with a few select people. It's much easier to get people together to listen to this one guy for about an hour, right? There's a new level of spiritual depth that's unlocked when a teacher brings a few chosen people together to teach them intimately. It's a level of depth that you don't get when you're just sitting inside of a crowd. Because young adults don't need to feel any more crowded these days, especially young adults who live in urban cities. What we need, quite frankly, is intimacy. What we need are like real deep, sincere relationships. And that's the kind of relationship, that's the discipleship that I see between Joshua and Moses, or Jesus and his apostles. And again, that's what the Great Commission commands us to do, to make disciples. So if I don't sound like a discipleship salesperson yet, just give me one more. Disciplers, people who disciple others, grow as they teach. Jacob, my accountability partner, he's also my disciple. And I think in the time that we've been doing discipleship, I've seen him grow just as much, or I've seen myself grow just as much as I've seen him growing. And I know I'm actually not a great discipler. I've failed many times I think I failed Jacob many times, but I've also failed past disciples many times as well. But still, I'll tell you that there's no better way of learning the word than studying it to teach others. And there's no better training in holiness than caring intimately for a few chosen people. Which is to say, if you're out there and you know exactly what I'm talking about, if you see your church in decline, or you see the church in decline and you want to do something about it, then go out and do something about it. You can do something about it. Go and find a younger Christian, somebody you see potential in, and bring them under your wing and teach them. And in some time, what you'll see is that you'll be stronger and that person will be stronger. That person will be ready to teach and you'll be ready to teach even better. And you guys can also then go out and make more disciples. And I know that sounds really slow compared to if, let's say, you got like 100 people in a room and then you could expect them to come back to church the next Sunday after this great event. But this discipleship way, this what seems like a slow way is the way that Jesus showed it in his own life. It's the way that we see in the Bible. We see sustainable growth inside of the community of God. And you know, what if we just do things the way that Jesus did it, right? What am I crazy? Like, come on, let's just do that. Let's just do it the way that Jesus did it. So even if you're like nervous about things and you don't know what to do, I would say just trust God and take your passion and focus it into one person or two people and really invest in those people. And if you really don't know what to do, then I would refer you actually to like other resources, like the 2-7 series. It's a discipleship series that you can use to guide your discipleship while you're discipling another person. Anyways, this topic about discipleship, I hope you can tell, but I'm quite passionate about it. And I'd like to make a better, more in-depth video on it rather than just rant about it for like a few minutes. But I'd like to talk a little bit deeper about it in a future video. In the meantime, I hope this rant has helped some of you in some ways. You know, just encourage you to go out there and actually pass on the things that you've learned to other people, disciple people, no matter how inadequate right now you might feel. And as always, grace, peace, and see you in the next one.